Excusez-moi. Nou, dit is een brief en die heb ik geschreven in het Engels naar Paus Johannes Paulus II en de wijlende Dear Pope Holland Gouda, 15 augustus 1995. Dear Pope Johannes Paulus, I write you because of an important question. Maybe you have heard of the revival of the case rehabilitation for Oscar Wilde. About 100 years ago, the poet-writer Oscar Wilde was sentenced for 2 years imprisonment, but he was surely full innocent. He was the victim of the jealous and spiteful Marquis of Queensberry and the fatal son of this Marquis, Lord Alfred Douglas, who was also the friend of Oscar Wilde. Mr. Oscar Wilde lost everything he had. His name as a great artist and a man of honor, his money, his houses, his beloved wife and children, his freedom, but most of all his lust for life. After those 2 years in prison, he lived 3 years in Paris, forgotten and forsaken, where he died in a state of delirium tremens. His pain was too much for him, but he gave the best of himself. He gave pure beauty where the world gave him extreme suffering. He simply didn't want it to hate. He was an angel of love. God is love. After good and slowly reading his book, letter De Profundis from 1897, I'd come to the conclusion that he was a man in the spirit of Jesus Christ and in the spirit of Saint Franciscus and Saint Elizabeth of Lisieux and Saint Joannes of Spain, and in the spirit of the disciples of Christ. Especially in De Profundis you must read, if you want and if you have the time, page 94. I see a much closer and direct connection to page 118, to the secret of God. He became a Roman Catholic. Remember that. And he is buried on the graveyard Père Lachaise in Paris. He was a man of suffering, just like Jesus Christ. He was a homosexual, and the people crucified him, therefore, because they were people of hate, and they were scared for Oscar Wilde, who wrote for love and who lived for love and love only. Even Jesus Christ was a homosexual man. He loved Joannes more than his own soul. And now the English government, the stupid English government, refused to give Oscar Wilde rehabilitation a thing I can't understand. But after all, it is still England, England, I guess. But however, there must be a way to give Oscar Wilde his true face back. To do his the most possible right to give him back our love. He will be the first writer I know. He will be the first public homosexual I know. But he will not be the first man who was in prison. The first man was Jesus Christ himself. And there is Titus Brandsma, who was a victim of the Nazis. When you visit a man in prison, you visit me, said Jesus Christ. And of course, there was a lot of holy people. And of course, there were a lot of holy people who went to a monastery or a nunnery to be freely imprisoned. If I can say so, the way of contemplation leads to God. If there is a true desire, like Saint Benedict said. I lived as a postulant for 1.5 years in the Abbey of Egmond Binnen in Holland, and I learned a lot there, especially from the abbot, who is a high soul and who became a good friend of mine because of personal psychical problems. I had to lead my life as a monk. But, like I said, I learned a lot, and I am thankful therefore. And now I will start my question. The main reason why I sent you this letter. Dear Pope, can and will you give Oscar Wilde the beatification, not only as a reaction to the revival of his case, but for him as a human being who lived in the spirit of Jesus Christ, who was an angel of love, who was a member of our church, the Holy Church, who loves the poor, the sick, and the outcast. They say it is the least thing we, the Holy Church, can do for him, the best thing. He brought beauty and love in his art. God is the greatest artist, and Oscar Wilde was the artist of God. Beautiful are his fairy tales, like parables. Also are his books and his poetry, like the ballad of Reading Gold. And everything is full of love, full of heavenly love. But most of all, his life was a life of true love. So please, dear Pope Joanne, will you give Oscar Wilde the beatification? It will be a great step forward in many ways. I wish you the best in your position. God blesses you. Have a good health, and hopefully I hear more from you. Hopefully a good result for my proposal for Mr. Oscar Wilde, 1856, 1900. Yours very faithfully, Mr. Joanan Rutgers. Ik krijg een keurige brief terug van het Vaticaan. Althans van een of andere secretaris van het Vaticaan. Die me schreef dat ze het in overweging zouden nemen en dat ze hoopten dat ik in de toekomst nog meer bewijzen kon leveren voor de eventuele zaligverklaring van Oscar Wilde. Nou, je begrijpt dat ik die types voor geen meter geloof. Het zal alleen maar zoete broodjes bakken. En schijnheilig doen en schijnheilig doen. Ja, kijk alleen maar naar, naar al die heiligen die ze heilig verklaard hebben. Dat zijn allemaal types vanuit hun eigen nest. Echt, allemaal, stuk voor stuk. Vanuit hun eigen stinkende rotnest. Enfin, sloes dat niet. Platvloers. Er zwemmen bloeddorstige kaaimannen en zeemeerminnen met zware boezems in de goudse grachten. En ze verdragen elkaar. In een museumhaven heb ik gevreden met een aardige zeemeermin. Ze ritste zo haar vissenstaat open. Het kan dus. In mijn woonboot aan de Kattensingel verzorg ik bijna 100 zwerfkatten. Iedere avond probeer ik met gedachten het monster van Loch Ness naar Gouda te transporteren. Want die kaaskarren met tandenloze nepboertjes en wulpse kaasprinsessen op glimlachstand gezet, een beetje gouwenaar schaamt zich rot. Ik heb een primeur. De burgemeester zal dit jaar tijdens lichtjesfeest als kerstman verkleed op het bordes verschijnen om cadeautjes uit te delen aan speciaal overgevlogen relaties uit Kongsberg. Niet dat King Kong daar op een berg de kerstbomen verkoop doet, maar de wereld is zo saai gebleven na al die fantasieloze eeuwen. You're sorry.